Welcome to the Sewing Studio. I'm Anna and this video is all about the fabulous Bernina 770 QE Plus sewing machine. I'm going to talk you through its features and functions. I'll show you everything that comes in the box. I'll show you how to thread the machine, do some sewing, show you its capabilities, and then we'll talk a bit about warranty and support. So we've split all of those into chapters, so if there's a particular section you're interested in, feel free to head straight there if you haven't got time to stay for the whole video. And don't forget, if you like what you're seeing, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell to be notified when we upload new videos. And if you don't know about us, we are the Sewing Studio. We're an independent retailer based in the Southwest. We have an online shop as well as a physical shop. And we are all sewers ourselves, and we are here at the end of a phone, on email or live chat to help in any way that we can. So let's dive into the features of the Bernina 770 QE Plus. So the first thing you can't mistake is its size. It's a big machine. It weighs around 14 kilos for starters, so it's not the most ideal thing to transport around, but it's powerful, so it's nice and heavy because it's got more metal parts inside and it really does do the job well. It's got 10 inches of space to the right of the needle, and you've got 5 inches of height just here as well. So it's really good if you're working on large coats or jackets or quilts. You've got a nice bit of space there to be able to handle everything smoothly. It's also got a nice big touch screen here, which is where all your stitches are selected. Now there's over 1,000 stitch options on this machine, which is quite a lot, but it's a quilting edition, so there are more quilting stitches available on this machine, as well as your utility, your practical stitches, buttonholes, which it does in one step, a really super easy way of doing buttonholes, which I'll show you in the sewing section. You've also got decorative stitches in there, some fonts as well, all the things that you could possibly need. And if that wasn't enough, there is a USB port as well that you can add your own stitches on there, should that be your thing. Most of the controls that we use day by day are still close to hand. So you've got the adjustable stitch width and length here, and the maximum width you can achieve is 9mm and the maximum length is 6mm. You've also got needle position buttons here, so when you're sewing piping or doing zips or something like that, you can get nice and tight into your work, and there's 11 different positions there that can be achieved across the 9mm, both left and right. So because it's computerized, you have the option to use the start-stop button or the foot pedal that it comes with as well. And it's actually a foot pedal with a kickback as well that you can program to whatever you want to do, really. It comes as standard. If you kick back on the foot pedal, it raises the needle up, needle down. You can set it to cut the thread, all sorts of things that you can do with that. But you've got your start-stop button here as well, and then speed control there. So you can control the speed when you need to and go at those high speeds when you're, I don't know, doing curtains or bed sheets or something like that. You've also got your reverse button down here. This machine's got an automatic presser foot, and that's that one, sorry, and then that's your auto scissor cut. We've also got a needle up, needle down, and you can program that for it to either stay in the work when you finish sewing or come up. And then a tie off here or locking stitch, and then pattern start and pattern end for when you're programming in a combination of stitches or doing a font or something like that. Basically, you can start and end the pattern. So I mentioned a couple of automatic features there. So it has automatic presser foot, and that gives you a few options on there. So you can set the machine for when you stop sewing, for the needle to stay down and the presser foot to come up, so that you can quite simply pivot your work and start sewing again. It's also good for chain piecing, things like that, really quick and easy to get things underneath. It just means that your hands stay on the work and away you go. It does also come with a knee lift as well, so if you prefer to use the knee lift to do that, then that option is there. It just slots into the front there as well. Now, talking about the automatic features, I've already mentioned the automatic thread cutter there, but it also has automatic thread tension. And it has Bernina's innovative adaptive thread tension as well. So once you've set your stitch and the width and the length, which is actually set for you unless you decide to change it, it's constantly monitoring everything and adapting. Don't ask me how, that's beyond me, but it is adapting the tension and everything to give the best optimum results so that your stitches come out just beautiful every single time. Now there is also a semi-automatic needle threader in here to help you thread the eye of the needle. And obviously you can adjust the pressure that's on the presser foot as well. The feed dogs, those can be dropped if you want to do any kind of free motion work. And then the bobbin is a front loading bobbin in here. And again, this is Bernina's unique technology, and the bobbins are a lot larger than standard bobbins, so they're 70% larger. So you can fit a huge amount more thread on there, so you're running out less often. And there's sensors on this machine, so it's going to tell you when your bobbin's running low. It's going to tell you when you've run out of thread on the top as well, so you don't merrily sew along like we all do and then get to the end and realise half of it actually hasn't sewn because you've run out of bobbin thread. It's very easy to load, and I will show you that when we get to the sewing section. I'll just close that up there. And then here you've got quite a slim free arm to do any kind of cuffs, hems and things like that. What else have we got feature-wise? There's quite a lot on this machine. Oh, I haven't mentioned the magic question mark. So within this screen here, like I say, there's over 1,000 stitches. There's quite a lot. So if you're ever not sure what one of those stitches is used for, you can press the question mark and it'll tell you exactly what that stitch is. There's also built-in tutorials to help you get to know the machine, and reminders as well. If you've not done a certain principle for a while, you can just go in there and have a look. And also a creative consultant, as Bernina call it. So you can choose the type of fabric that you're going to be using, and it will give you a recommendation of the correct stitch to use, what needle to use, what thread to use, and what foot to use on the machine. Press OK, and then it will just do everything else for you, and you can start sewing. And I'll demonstrate that to you when we get to the sewing section, which is coming up. But first, let's take a look at what comes in the box. So obviously there'll be the machine, a bit pointless without it, and there'll already be a foot on there, which is the standard. Oh, I've just realised I've forgotten. This machine also has built-in dual feed at the back here. So this is a foot that's just sat up the back there that engages in the bottom. And it's got little teeth in there that feed the top of fabric, as well as the teeth underneath feeding the bottom of the fabric. So it's really good for like stretchy fabric, you know, fabrics that tend to shift around for piecing and for quilting. Can't believe I forgot about that. It's quite important. Anyway, so the machine is in the box, and then you've also got this standard foot that will already be on there. And then you'll find another version of the same foot that you can use with the dual feed. An open toe foot for the decorative stitches and fonts. A zip foot, you can also use that for piping if you like. A patchwork foot, and your one-step buttonhole foot. It also comes with a straight stitch needle plate and this range of accessories. And those all fit in this Bernina wardrobe. You've then got a soft cover that goes over the machine to keep the dust off, and it's got a nice pocket in the front there to keep bits and bobs in. And there's also a quite large extension table that just slides onto the machine, and that makes the working area much bigger and helps support the weight of heavier projects as well. And then you've got your power lead and your foot control, the Bernina stitch regulator, your knee lift, an accessory catalogue and a full instruction manual. Now this seems quite thick, but partway through this manual is all about Bernina machine embroidery. And that's because this machine has embroidery technology. Don't get me wrong, it is a sewing machine, but to unlock the embroidery side of things, you just need to purchase the optional embroidery module, slot it in, and then you've got machine embroidery as well. So it turns it into a sewing and embroidery machine. And it's a great idea doing it that way, because you might decide further down the line that you want to do machine embroidery. And rather than having to buy a whole new machine, you can just buy the module, add it on, and then you've got all that creativity at your fingertips. But we've got just a sewing machine here, more than just a sewing machine, I might add. So let's head into the sewing demonstration now and I'll show you its capabilities. So to thread the machine, you just want to pop your thread on the spool pin and then pop the spool cap on. Grab the end of your thread and then you're just following all the solid lines. So in the guide at the back there, down the front, around, up, back and forth. Give it a little tug, make sure it's in the take-up lever. The guide just here, and then the last one at the top of the needle. Just going to hold on to that and give it a tug so it goes all the way over. And then for the needle threader, you need to make sure the needle's in the right position. So you can do that using the needle up, needle down. So you can press that down and back up, and then we know the needle is in the right position. So if you come part way down and then go around that post from front around to back, and then keep pushing it all the way down, and then you want to take the thread in this little gap here and take it right to the back, and then release with your left hand and your right hand, and then it draws the thread up the back for you to take the thread out. And I'll just pop that under the foot. And then for the bobbin, you just want to open the door, just pull it forward there. And then this is like a push spring, I guess, mechanism. So you can just push on that and it will pop out. Now it's not possible to get this bobbin in the wrong way around. If you try and put it in that way, it just will not go in, and don't force it because it gets stuck. So you want the sensors facing inwards and it will just fit in nice and neatly. And then you just want to go up through the slit there and under the guide. And then to pop it back in, you want this at sort of 12:02, let's say that. And then you're just going to push it back in, but don't push it back on the piece that we took it out on because it's going to retract back. So just go on the opposite side, that's in there. And then you can just cut the thread off on that cutter, and there's no need to drop the bobbin thread. You can if you want to, but there is no need to. And if you ever need a reminder of how to thread the machine, the bobbin is always on the screen for you here. So you can just press that and you're going to get an animation that shows you how to load your bobbin. And then you've also got tutorials in this book symbol here. So if you press on there, you've got various different ones for different things. So you've got your threading here. So again, it's going to show you how to thread your bobbin, and then threading the upper thread shows you where you need to go and do everything. So you really can't go wrong. You also have your instruction manual, so that's absolutely fine. But you know what it's like, they all thread very similarly. And once you've got it at home and you're sat at it and you're doing it over and over again, it just becomes like second nature. So this is the main screen when you switch the machine on. And this is where all your stitches are and where you will select them. So they're separated out into folders, and you can make this screen bigger by expanding it there. So these are all your practical stitches or your utility stitches. And then you've got all your different decorative options, different fonts, buttonholes, eyelets, button sewing, and then all your different quilting ones. And in here you can then save certain stitches if you want to. So let's go back up to the straight stitch. And over here what you're seeing is a representation of the stitch. So this is the foot that we've got on. Your width is displayed here and your length is displayed here. And then over here you've got a representation of the stitch that it's going to sew out. So if I switch to a zigzag now, you can see it's gone to a zigzag. And here is where you'll see your stitch width and your stitch length. So let's sew out a standard straight stitch a minute. I've got a piece of cotton here. And I'm just going to drop the presser foot. And I'm not using the foot pedal, I'm going to use the start stop button. Whoops. So I've got the speed on slow to start with. So I'm just going to make a start. And slow is quite slow, it's quite manageable. So if we go up to midway, and then full speed. And full speed there is 1,000 stitches per minute. So you can go up to 1,000 stitches per minute. And there's your nice neat straight stitch. That's on the top and that's underneath. So at the moment it's set for the needle to come up when we stop sewing. You can very simply change that with this symbol here. So it's got a line with the needle above, so it's going to stop with the needle up. And if you press on that one, it's then going to stop with the needle down. Let's just reduce the speed down a little bit. So there you go, your needle is down. But we're still clamped on the presser foot. So what we need to do is enable the presser foot lift, if you like, and that's in the settings. So you go into the two cogs here, and then stitch settings, and then the hand, and then you want the needle up. So you can see here, this is what we've got at the moment. So the needle's going down and the foot is staying down. Here is the needle going down with the foot going up a little way or the foot going up a long way, depending on your project. So I'm only using cotton, so we'll just set it to go up a small way. And now when we finish sewing, the needle is going to stay down and the presser foot comes up. So we can pivot and sew, pivot and sew. And that's really good if you're chain piecing or stitching with small pieces. You know, you can just keep adding and sewing and adding and sewing. And actually, if you're using the foot pedal and not the button, your hands aren't really moving anywhere. It makes the whole process a lot quicker. So let's just take that out. Okay. Now, one of the things I really like about this machine is when you're altering your stitch width and your stitch length, you're seeing the stitch on the screen. So let me show you a minute. So if I increase my stitch width, you can see my straight stitch obviously is now gone to a zigzag. And if I increase the length, I can see exactly how it's going to sew out. You know, some machines you don't get that, and then you're kind of taking a bit of a chance, or you're doing test runs and samples of what it's gonna sew out like. And actually, that's really useful when it comes to like a blanket stitch, because sometimes the standard, you know, your piece of applique might be slightly bigger, so you can absolutely see what it's going to look like on the screen. And then if you like that setting, you can then save it to the memory, so you don't need to remember the settings that you've done. If you're halfway through a project and you need to switch the machine off and come back again, you can just save that stitch and those settings. So let's look at how to program a sequence of stitches. It's probably easiest to do that with the fonts, because it's not very often we would sew out a row of letters. We want to do a sequence of stitches. So I'm going to choose my font. Let's just go for a standard one here. And then I'm going to write the word Bernina. So I want a capital B. And at the moment, it's going to stitch out a row of B's, which is not what we want. I want to stitch out a word. So I'm going to press the plus button, and then I can start typing and it will come up here. But it's actually easier if you expand that, and then it comes up along the top here. So B, and I'm going to go to lowercase e, R, N, I, N, A. Lovely. In here, you've got all different numbers. And then in here, you've got all different symbols and everything. Okay, so let's minimize that. And then I've got the word Bernina. But when I was typing it in then, I finished on the A. So you can see the A is blue, so it's going to want to start sewing from the A, because that's kind of what we've told it. But I want it to start at the beginning, so you can press the pattern start button there. Get rid of my stylus, and I will show you what they sew out like. Actually, I'm going to swap the foot out for the 20C, which is the open toe embroidery foot, because it's got a groove underneath that will cope with the density of the stitches and stop it getting puckered up. So these feet are easy to remove. You just push that lever back, take that out, and you just line up the cone with the cone in the machine and put the lever back down, and that's your foot on. And I'm then going to tell it that I've got that foot on, and then it's going to optimize everything for me, the tension, the pressure, everything. So I go into the foot symbol here, and then I find 20C, there it was, there. And now you can see this is changed to 20C. So I get rid of that, and that's set up for everything I need it to do to give me a nice result. And I'm just going to drop the presser foot and start sewing my letters. Okay, so when we got to the A, I pressed the pattern end button there so that it stopped sewing when it finished the whole word, because I only wanted to sew one of the words. And there's your lovely, nice, neat font. And these joining stitches here, they can be removed, and every single stitch is secure. Now, I spoke to you about an easy way of sewing buttonholes, so let's take a look at that now. So I'm going to go into my buttonhole. Actually, let's come out of the combination mode, so take off the plus, else it's going to think I want to combine a buttonhole with the word Bernina, which I don't. So I'm just going to choose a standard buttonhole. Now, if you're ever not sure what one of these stitches are, you can use the magic question mark. It's not a magic question mark. I call it that because it's brilliant. It is just a question mark. So you can press on the question mark and then choose a stitch. And it's going to tell you what the stitch is and what its recommended use is. So that one is an heirloom buttonhole, and its recommendation is for hand-stitched effects on garments and craft items. So this one here is the standard buttonhole, fine to medium weight materials, blouses, dresses, trousers, bed linens, etc. So that's the one that I need for this material. And that question mark works on all the stitches. I mean, obviously the decorative ones, they are decorative, so it'll just tell you it's a decorative stitch. But other ones like the utility, it's really, really useful. It makes sure that you're getting the most out of the machine, but also that the machine is set up to the best it can be to give you the best results. Right, so I'm going to choose that stitch, which is my standard buttonhole stitch, but at the moment it still thinks I've got foot 20C on, which is not going to be doable. So I'm going to take that out. Whoops, I'll just let that fall and get the buttonhole foot. So I'm just going to pop that on, and then I'm going to tell it that I've got foot 3A on there, which is that one there. Okay. Lovely. Now what I want to do is get my thread underneath the foot and draw up the bobbin thread, because it gives a much neater result. And I do that by popping a piece of fabric in, pop the needle down, back up again, raise the foot, and then just gently pull the fabric to the side. Sometimes I get the bobbin thread, sometimes I don't, so I'm just going to drop that down again, pull that up, raise my foot, and there's my bobbin thread. I'll just bring that through a minute. There he is. Right. Pop that in, and then I'll just get that needle one under again. There we go. Okay. So the standard program is to record a buttonhole. So say if your buttonhole was bigger than this foot, you can use the other foot and set it to the size that you need it to do. You only need to set it once, and then you can go on and sew as many buttonholes as you want in that size. You could save it if you want to as well, if it's a common size that you use, so you don't have to keep setting it. I just want to sew one buttonhole currently. So sorry, I didn't want that. I want the I button. And then I'm going to choose the sizing option here. Do that so it doesn't fall down. And then I'm going to grab my button. I'm going to put it on the screen. So what we're aiming for is for this circle to encompass the button. So I'm just going to put it on the screen, and then I'm going to use the dials here to increase the circle until it goes all the way around my button. Just to make that slightly smaller. There we go. So there you can see now the button is 20mm and it's going to sew the buttonhole 2 mils bigger at 22mm. So I'm just going to pop my fabric underneath again and sew my buttonhole. Okay, cut my thread. And there's your nice neat buttonhole. That's on the top and then that's underneath. So before I move on to some different types of fabric, heavier fabric, stretch fabric, let's take a look at some of the quilting features on here. So I'm going to take the buttonhole foot off a moment and let's go for piecing first. So I'm going to get the patchwork foot. Okay, so I'm just going to pop that on, put the thread underneath, and then I'm going to drop the presser foot down, and then this seam guide, so 1/4 inch is exactly on the edge of this foot. So I'm just going to sit that seam guide right on the edge there, and then pop the screw in. Make sure that's sitting there and sitting straight, and I will tighten that up. Okay, and then what you want to do is engage the jewel feed. So if I raise the presser foot up again, and this foot is a D foot, so it's the 97D, which I will tell it I've got on in a minute. And the D means that it has the opening at the back for the jewel feed, so D for jewel feed. You just bring that down and it sits in the back there. So the teeth in there are going to feed with the teeth at the bottom at the same rate, so you don't get as much movement and slippage on your fabric. So let's come out of that a minute and we'll go back to a straight stitch just for a minute, and then I'm going to tell it that it's a 97D that I've got on there, right down the bottom. There we go, 97D. Okay, and then we'll go into the quilting stitches, and I quite like this one here for piecing because it's a securing program as well. So it does some very small stitches in the beginning, does its normal stitch length, and then some very small stitches at the end. Okay, so I'm going to choose that one. It now knows it's got foot 97D on, you can see it here, so it's set the pressure that we need, it's set the tension that we need, again, to make sure we're getting the best results. So I've got my 2 pieces of fabric here, and I'm just going to line them up against the seam guide here, drop that down, and start my sewing. Come on. There we go. And then cut my threads. And you've got your nice neat 1/4 inch. Now I hadn't pinned that. I know it's not a very long piece, but there was no, because you've got the jewel feed engaged, there was no movement in the seam or anything. It's not coming apart or shifting or moving at all. So when it comes to actual quilting, I've popped the standard foot but the D version so that I can have the jewel feed engaged in there. And as you can see, I've popped the extension table on. So this foot is nice and wide, so you can use all the range of stitches that are on the machine. I'm going to choose in the quilting section, let's do a stippling stitch in there. I can keep it as is, quite like it like that. And then I'm just going to pop my fabric in underneath, drop the presser foot and make a start. secure the stitch at the end there. Cut my threads. And that's our nice, neat stippling stitch. It's nice and consistent. There was no shift in the layers with the jewel feed on, and that's underneath. So when it comes to free motion, you can buy a separate free motion foot or a darning foot, but obviously it comes with the BSR, the Bernina stitch regulator. So I'll show you how that works. I'm just going to take off the foot, and actually I'll take the needle out as well a minute, just because I'm going to swap the needle plate out so it just saves any damage. Now these needle plates are very easy to change. There's circles here. You just push on that and it lifts out. And then I can get the straight stitch one and just line it up and push that in. And then I'm going to pop my needle back in. Just make sure it is all the way up. Get that threaded. Pull that through. There we go. And then I'm going to get the stitch regulator out of its tin. Okay. And then again, you're just lining up the cone with the cone shape on the machine. Push that in. And then the lead plugs into the back of the machine here. You just push it in. All the way till you hear that last click there. And then the machine will know that it has that foot on. So it's reminding you here to lower the feed dogs. And that's the button, whoops, on the side here. So I'm just going to push that in, and then the feed dogs are down. So now my warning has gone away. So there's nothing else I need to do because it knows it's got that machine on, so it's ready to rock and roll. I'm just going to grab my fabric. So I'm going to draw my bobbin thread up to the top. I'm going to change the speed a minute before I forget to do that. So I'm going to drop the needle in, pull it up again, and give a tug to grab my bobbin thread. And then I like to start with the needle in. And then I'm just going to press the start button. Might go a little bit slower. And then you just start moving. I'm going to stop it there so I can get these out the way. And what happens with this is as I'm sewing, so as I'm moving the fabric, the foot is detecting that and it's going to speed up or slow down the machine. So the faster I move the fabric, the faster the machine will sew. The slower I move the fabric, the slower it will sew. That's enough. I'm getting carried away now because I really enjoy doing it, but you get the idea. And let me just cut that off a minute and show you. So the stitches are nice and consistent. That's just where I went a bit wrong starting again. That's on the top and then that's underneath. So there's no eyelashing. It's all lovely and neat. So when it comes to different types of fabric, I'm going to sew with the jersey fabric first, and I'll show you how the creative consultant works. I'm just going to go in the little kind of dressmaker's mannequin symbol there. And then you've got different types of fabric here, and I've got a lightweight woven, so I'm going to go into that one. And then you've got different principles, so sewing a seam, overcasting a blind hem, your buttonhole, sewing in a zip, all sorts of different things. So I'm just going to go to the straight stitch. And it's telling me that for this type of fabric, I need to use stitch 11, a 70 ballpoint needle, which I've just put on, polyester thread, I've actually got cotton on, but that's fine for what we're doing here, and then foot 1D, which I've just put on, and I will engage the jewel feed. So then if I press the tick for OK, It's then automatically chosen stitch 11 for me. It's set the tension, it knows it's got foot 1D on, and it's altered the presser foot pressure for me. And that's to make sure, again, that I get the best results on my fabric. So let's see if that's what happens. So I'm just going to pop it underneath and make a start. Just press the tie off there to tie that off at the end. Whoops, don't want that one. Getting carried away on the start-stop button. And look just how beautiful that is. See how flat it's sitting. There's no waviness in there at all. That's on the top and that's underneath. So they've both been fed consistently because of the jewel feed. And you can stretch the fabric with the stitch. And then when it comes to the thicker side of fabrics, I've got some denim here. It's a 10-ounce denim that we keep in our shop. Just pull the bobbin thread out there. And then I'm going to choose, I've already popped a jeans needle in, and I'm going to choose a standard straight stitch. I've still got the 1D on, but I'm going to increase the stitch length just by 1 millimetre to 3.5 because this fabric is thicker than, say, the cotton that we were working with, and the jersey for that matter. So it helps to keep the stitches sitting on the top rather than getting tight and pulling them in. So I'm just going to make a start. And then you can see how that's gone through that, no problem at all, no skip stitches, and that's underneath. So that's 2 layers. Let's double it over and go through 4 layers. No problem at all. So let's double it over again and go through 8 layers. Again, no problem at all for this machine. So I'm going to double it over once more. So we'll go through 16 layers. And this time I'm going to increase the stitch again, just another millimetre because it's so thick. And then built into the machine, nothing you need to do, nothing in the settings, there is automatically what's called a hammer mode. And basically what happens is when the machine detects that it has this thickness or thicker in the machine, it gently vibrates the needle to penetrate through the layers of the fabric. And it's gone through that with no problem at all. There's no skip stitches. Everything's nice and neat. And the seam is still, let's get the right one, really secure. This machine comes with a 7-year warranty, and in the box you'll find this card that explains it all to you and how to register your machine with Bernina. And don't forget, we're here at the Sewing Studio. As I mentioned in the beginning, we're sewers ourselves and we love to know our machines inside and out so that we can help you along with your sewing journey. If you've decided that the Bernina 770 QE Plus is the right machine for you, then head on over to our website and grab yours now. Delivery is fast and it's free. Thanks for watching.